I am elated. You have no idea how elated I am to be here having this conversation with this amazing young person, this beautiful young person inside and out. I can already see just the spirit just emanating, and it's just wonderful. My passion is talking to young people. This young person is the same age as my son. And so I was like, I got another baby in the world. This is going to be another one of my babies. I collect babies everywhere. And it's just an honor to be here working with Project Healthy Minds. They know I love them, George and Jared and Phil and everybody. They know I love them. And so it's my pleasure. My name's Dr. Alfiee. I should have said that first. I'm so sorry. And I run something called the Acoma Project, and I am a long partner of all the folks at Project Healthy Minds, whom I've said 1,000 times I adore them. And we do a lot of work together around this issue of mental health. And today we get to have this amazing conversation around literally the reason I was put on this earth, young people's mental health, teenagers' mental health. So I have the honor of being here with Cloe Wilder, and I want Cloe to introduce herself.
Yeah, and that was the sweetest introduction in the world. I loved that.
You deserve it. You deserve it. So can you just tell everybody who you are and tell us a little bit about you? And then we will just dive right in. I would love to hear whatever words you want to share with us, words of wisdom about this, the importance for you of mental health and music as a young person. So please introduce yourself and tell us about you.
Well, I'm Chloe. I'm a singer-songwriter. I'm 15 years old. And so I feel like automatically myself being a mental health advocate, I am an advocate for teenage mental health, of course, because that is my thing. And, so I'm so excited to be doing this. I think this is so cool. And I think you are so cool. So this is going to be amazing. And I just love having conversations like this and just being able to talk about it, because I feel like naturally when I entered the music industry, I became, a public mental health advocate because so much of my music revolved around it. And so it was just kind of one of those things that I felt like, it wasn't in a negative way. I felt like I had to do it, but I really wanted to do it. And naturally that's really just where it went for me and where it's still going. So I'm so excited to talk to you.
Oh, I have to tell you, for your generation, for Gen Z, this whole issue, I feel like you all have really pushed all the rest of us, all these generations that came before you, to be focused and clear about what we're talking about when we talk about mental health, and to be really honest and really direct about why it's important. And so I would love to hear from your perspective, for you personally, why would you say mental health is so important to you, and why is it so important for you?
Well, I started struggling mentally when I was 7, and I was so little. And, and that's not even, when you think about it, that wasn't that long ago for me, but I was so little and I was so scared. And I feel like I look at it as if I, didn't have the help that I did, because my mom was so supportive of me. And obviously I was a very small child. And so I was so confused and terrified of myself. And I think that, if I wouldn't have, had the support from my mother, especially, that I think about it and I don't know what it would look like now. And so I think that I think I just became so passionate about taking care of myself. And especially when you take a step back and you think about it from that way and you're okay, it could have gotten progressively worse. I think that I'm just so happy to share things and happy to take care of myself and happy to be so open about things, because especially going to therapy from such a young age, I feel like I'm so comfortable talking to people that I and that comes to a wide audience, to talking to people that I don't really know about mental health, so I feel like it makes me feel better to talk about it too. And so it's just one of those things that I feel like I enjoy doing and I get to do. And so I've kind of just started looking at it like that.
Yeah, I love the honesty and the openness and being able to articulate to people. I started struggling when I was 7 years old. And to me, that's one of the things that's super refreshing, because I think so many people feel like they're by themselves when they struggle. I think the other thing that you said that really resonates with me and that feels very powerful for me is that you talked about having an adult, a parent in your house who got it and who wanted to support you and to help you. And I'm wondering if you feel like any of those themes or any of those messages or any of those ideas come out in the music that you create? Are you able to articulate, right? Just what you just shared. Like I was 7, I started feeling things, and then I was able to turn to somebody and get some help. And that person helped me get in front of the right people to take care of myself. Do you have the opportunity to talk about those things in your music? And why do you think it's important to talk about that through your music?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I don't like to get too like conceptual when I'm writing a song. And so I feel like, and it's something that obviously has been affecting me from a very young age. And so I feel like naturally I just write about it all the time. And, every song I write comes from, something within me. And so, and I feel like I don't normally sit down and are like, okay, this is exactly what I'm going to write about because, I think about some other, and honestly, more recently, I've been reflecting on like my mental health in when I was super little. And so that's definitely, and I had OCD with morbid thoughts. And so I definitely write about that a lot because that was a lot, that was very heavy on me. And that's, I love doing that because it makes me feel, like I'm doing something with it. And, just being able to turn something that affected you so much as a small child into something like poetic and like nice to listen to. It's like, it's nice to listen back to too, because it's like you've, written about your life, but it almost feels like somebody else wrote it for you. And it's just nice to be able to like relate to a piece of art that you like pulled out of thin air. But yeah, so it's very cathartic for me. And I am just like absolutely obsessed with writing music about things that have happened to me. But yeah, so it definitely, I feel like almost every song has definitely come from a place of like my mental health.
Yeah.
And how, it's kind of like, okay, this happened, this was said to me, and like this is how it made me feel, and this is how I looked at it.
Yeah, I love hearing this theme of the writing is therapeutic, or you said the writing is cathartic, right? And the writing allows you to get out these feelings, or I don't know, just these things that either you might be struggling with or experiences that you've had. It allows you to process. And it makes me think of how for you, it's almost like you have these multiple layers and ways in which you can process things that you're experiencing, right? Because you can write, like you said, you don't like to get too conceptual, you don't want to get too deep into it, but you like to allow those creative juices to flow, and they come out in your writing, they come out in your singing, they come out in the art that you create and produce.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if, do you have any advice or thoughts for other young people your age, maybe a little bit older, maybe a little bit younger, on things that they might be able to do to cope? Because I guess in some ways your writing and your music are like coping mechanisms. So are those the only coping mechanisms that you use? Are there other ones that you have? And would you mind sharing a little bit with all of us? What are some of these other coping mechanisms that you use?
Yeah, I mean, I think writing in any form is a really helpful coping mechanism. And that's like, for me, it's not always songwriting. And I kind of compare it back to therapy when I was younger, in like coloring books and like the little like diaries that your therapist would give you. I feel like I kind of go back to that. And I still enjoy doing things like that. And that helped me so much when I was a child. And so I feel like that's still a child, but little. But yeah, so I think writing in any form is super helpful because there really is something to like looking at words on a page about how you're feeling at that time and kind of separating yourself from it and reading it and being like, okay, these are valid feelings because they're words and they have meaning and they hold weight. And I'm a person and I'm really feeling this, And so I feel like, and I feel like it's so easy to, dissociate from that. And so I think that it's really nice to like just really get human about it and just write things down about how you're feeling and then look at it and just feel like it's actually worth something. Because it is, but like that's something that I feel like I get so insecure when I struggle. And I mean, that's my main coping mechanism for sure. And I feel like it takes some time because I didn't know it was going to be like songwriting, but it makes sense for me because when I was going, and I still go to therapy, but in my early therapy days, I was super committed to the coloring books and to the writing. And so I think that definitely has something to it.
So it sounds like the artistic expression piece was really like whatever the form that was going to show up in, whether that was the coloring books or whether it's the writing or even the songwriting, that was what was really important to you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that you said like that adds another layer to it. And that's how I feel like about it, like validating you kind of like further. I feel like that's what it does. It really adds like more depth to what you're feeling so that you can feel it even more. And just, I think that yeah, I think that it makes everything like come to life a little bit and then you can feel better about it.
What I love about what you just said, a couple things you said that I feel like resonate so much with young people in your age group, and that I hear all the time, and that I remember from when I was 15, like 100 million years ago. And one of those things is the insecurities that we all carry around with us. Like, I
Mhm.
don't know that anybody gets away with not having them. Like, everybody worries about something about themselves. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
it's like, it can be so heavy and it can be so challenging and difficult. And one of the things, I almost hate to say it, but I feel like it's important, is not only does everybody have those insecurities, but they don't necessarily go away when you become an adult, right? It's like they
Yeah.
just sort of morph unless we work on them. And I feel like the working on them part is lifelong, and it's something that we're always going to be doing. But I feel like that's healthy, right? I
Oh
feel like
yeah.
it's, you know what I mean? Like, that's super healthy.
And that's like what I said earlier. Like I'm like happy to take care of myself at this point, and now it has become like way more rewarding. Whereas I feel like in the beginning of a mental health journey, it can be frustrating and exhausting, and at times it still is. But I feel like as someone who's been in it for a little while, and it feels like a little while because it's like an age thing, and I
Mhm,
feel like
mhm.
um that has made me want to do it like all the more because you never like, and I think I said this earlier too, like you never know what it could have looked like years later if you wouldn't
That's
have
right.
put that effort in.
That's right. That's right. Like you gotta give yourself the space and the freedom to, I don't know, just like know that. I always tell young people, you are perfect exactly as you are. Like, you don't have to do anything different. You don't have to have anything different. You don't have to, excuse me, be any different. Like, just your existence is valuable. And as I listen to you, what I'm hearing from you is that I feel like there's something way down deep inside of you that you're able to just communicate just in the way that you're talking to me now, that says that you know that you're valuable, right? And I wonder if that was something that you had to like grow into. Did you always feel like that? Maybe there are days when like, yeah, I know I'm valuable, and there are other days like, not so much. I wonder about that, because when you have a mental health journey, when we're all on like, we're all at different places in our mental health journey, I should say. And depending on where you are, there are going to be days when you're like, I'm on top of the world. I feel great. I know I'm wonderful. And then there are going to be other days where it's like you're kind of drowning under the weight of whatever that mental health struggle might be. So I wonder for you, um, I don't know, how do you remind yourself that who you are is valuable and that you are okay exactly as you are? Because I feel like I see that in you.
I really appreciate that because I think it has been like a long time coming. And there were definitely moments at the beginning of my mental health journey where I did not feel that at all because I felt like something was wrong. And I think that I've become so much more confident in my existence in itself, like through art and through music, just because I feel really good about that. And I feel really good about myself when I do that. And I think there definitely is something like that for every single person that's going to make you feel good about yourself because it's your thing.
Yes.
And it doesn't even have to be like something creative or artistic because there's certain people I surround myself with that make me feel very validated and like I matter and like there is value to my existence. And I feel like you just have to, we're so fragile. And I feel like you just
Mhm.
have to like take the actual time to figure that out and what it is. And I still have my moments, but definitely, and that's why I love hearing that like shines through because I feel like it has been, it's been some work. And but yeah, and I feel like really what has helped me has been the songwriting and the connecting with people through it. That's like been so insane to have people like actually reach out to me and say that there have been like similar experiences and similar stories to mine that I've been sharing, not even just through music but through like conversations like this, and I think this is so cool because people can actually hear it like from us just talking and not in a
Mhm.
song, and because it
Mhm.
is so different. But yeah, I mean, that has just been the best thing ever, just hearing people relate to it. And I mean, and I would be writing songs either way because I love it. But the fact that like, people enjoy it and people are brought some comfort by it, then that
Mhm.
just makes it, feel so much better. And that's like a bonus to me, and I love it.
Oh, that's fantastic. Now I have to say, I tend to be well, you know how they say some people are glass half empty and some people are glass half full. I'm one of these people where honestly, I'm just happy there's something in the cup or something in the
Mhm.
glass. So I think I'm probably more of an optimist than not. And I don't want to like have us have this conversation without talking about the other side of it. Because I know there are a lot of young people who they'll listen to us or they'll watch us having this conversation. They're like, oh, they both have it all together and they got it all figured out and everything's perfect. And I don't want people to walk away from either of us feeling like that's the message, right? Because it's
Yeah.
not always happy and shiny and light, and you're not
Mhm.
always smiling. We're not always getting it right. And so I guess I wonder, it's like a two-part question. With you being a well-recognized and famous person at such a young age, like at 15, like I can't even imagine.
Mhm.
I know I remember the first time somebody asked me for an autograph, which was last summer. It really kind of stopped me in my tracks. And I was like, wait, are you sure? Right. And this young person happened to be a young person with autism, and the sweetest child. And to this day, I'm so honored that he was the first person to ever ask. And his dad was like, no, trust me, he has been waiting here for you for like 30 minutes. Please give him this autograph. He was really sweet, but it was just such a head trip for me.
Yeah.
And so I'm wondering for you, I guess the two parts of it, my question are being famous at such a young age and being so open and vulnerable about your experiences, even including and around mental health. I wonder if there have been any, now this has to be stuff that you're comfortable talking about, you know what I mean? Like don't feel pressured, but any challenges associated with that, and how have you managed some of those challenges?
Totally. And like what you were saying about the autograph, I've never been asked for an autograph, and that would be the coolest thing ever. But it might be the like pandemic, like that whole thing. But yeah, and I totally get that. And like obviously you're doing like such amazing work and you love it and you want to do it. And so it is crazy when like somebody like recognizes you for it, because you're like, well, I would be doing this either way. But yeah, so I think and it's wild to even hear like the word like famous, because I think especially like the past year, like the state of the world and how I put out my EP in January of this year, and so it's like definitely it hasn't been like the typical like
Yeah,
debut release schedule.
yeah, yeah,
But I mean there is the pressure to it, just because like music is so vulnerable, and it really is supposed to be fun. And so I think I have to like drag myself back down to earth sometimes and be like, okay, like you're doing this because you love it, and you don't
yeah,
you don't have to be a musician. And so I think that I definitely put the pressure on myself, because I love it so much, and I'm so obsessed with it that I want everything to be perfect, and I want everybody to see exactly what I want them to see, and I want it to everything to look good together. And it's such like when it becomes so like a project itself and like a body of work, it's so easy to like get caught up in that and like separate yourself from like the actual meaning behind what you're releasing. And I think that and so I think that I just always have to take a step back and think
yeah,
like, no, I'm doing this because this genuinely brings me joy.
yeah,
And I think this is, and like you said this earlier, like I think this is what I was like put on the earth for. And so yeah, I think I just have to like look at it like that
yeah,
and be reminded that this isn't, this is this is cool.
yeah,
And but there definitely is the pressure, and there's like a certain amount of like healthy pressure, I think, because
yes,
obviously like I want to get the work done and I want it to be well done.
yes.
But then like it's music, and I'm writing the music, and I love doing that, and it's so much fun, and I get to go sing it for people, and at this point it feels like I'm just singing, and I've gotten to play like a couple live shows, and so now it just feels like I'm singing to a group of friends, and I just feel like we're all friends, especially with like the level of like the audience I have right now, and how like the size of it. I feel like right now especially it just feels like we're all friends, because I have those like few dedicated people, and it's just so special to be able to do this. And I think that that's like how I have to look at it, you know. It's so nice to be able, and especially like having it all like documented, you know. That's so cool to just be able to look at it. And I also like to think about like, you know, in however many years when I have, you know, like 20 years or something, you know, I'm gonna think that this was such a cool teenage experience, because I definitely get like insecure that it's not the same like classic teenage experience, which everybody has a different one, but like that's where like some of my insecurities lie. And like in my head I'm like, this looks different than other people's. But I think and even right now, like I think it's pretty cool. So and I just have to remember that I'm literally, first I'm doing this for me because I love it and I love writing songs and it makes me feel better about everything that's happening. But yeah, but there's definitely the pressure, which I give myself all the time.
Yes. And I think in that sense, that makes you so relatable and makes you so similar to so many teenagers out there, because you all have this unique experience, Gen Zers, where, I don't know, in the history of so many of our lifetimes, we've never been through anything like this, like with lockdown and you all having to like do school from home, and, you know, just not being able to be with your friends and to hang out and have like these normal, I call them developmental milestones. You know what I mean? Like I've had parents, you know what I mean, say things to me like, well, how will my kids learn to deal with, I don't know, let's not say bullies. We don't want to get like too heavy, but how do you learn how to deal with challenges, disagreements, if you can't physically go be around people to deal with challenges and disagreements? You know what I mean? Like I remember middle school was horrible, but I remember it. And so it's like, how do you learn how to navigate middle school if you physically don't go to middle school? That's like, it's a whole different experience. And so for you all, I think what it's going to do is a couple things. One is it's going to give you this super unique perspective on how you live your life. It's going to give you this super unique perspective on your ability to overcome challenges, because you all have had so many and they're so different. And as just, you know, as we have this conversation, I think about all the statistics I've read about how many more young people in your age group talk about struggling with things like anxiety, right? Increased anxiety, increased depression. Some young people have been exposed to trauma in many different ways, or even just, you know, let's do the elephant in the room for your age group, social media. Right. And so how do we have this whole conversation if we don't talk about social media? So what, like, tell me a little bit about your thoughts about this relationship between, right, you released your EP in January. Like you said, you had this different experience. You have an audience. I know you connect with your audience on, I'm sure in many ways on social media. And then before I finish the question, I have to say this. May I have your autograph? I want to be the first person. So we're going to figure out how we're going to make this happen.
That's an honor. Can I have your autograph?
Yes, 100%. We're going to make this happen. So I'm the first person to ask you for your autographs. That's going to go down in history. And I'm going to cherish it, because I'm going to say, I knew her way back when. And now she's like global and all over the place. And I knew her way back when. It would
be my honor. Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much. And so I'm just wondering a little bit about this idea of fame, the work that you do as a singer-songwriter, as an artist, being a teenager, and social media. Can you talk a little bit about like how all those things fit together for you?
I think that my relationship with social media got pretty jaded pretty quick, because I had only had, specifically Instagram, I had only had that since I was like, which is my main platform. I'd only had that since I was like, I think like 11. And I started using it professionally when I was 12. And so I think it went so quickly from me, you know, having like my elementary school in my bio. And then so quickly it was like singer-songwriter. And then it was so different. And I had taken down, you know, all the posts of me and my friends. And like, it was all just, it got so serious so quick. And I think that I just really quickly started to hate it. Like, honestly, I did. And I was excited to be putting out music, and I was so excited to be doing all of that, but I was just so like not used to it. And it's not like I wasn't even getting like, I wasn't getting a negative reaction. I wasn't really paying attention to that or anything. I just like I was so overwhelmed by seeing so much of myself at once. And, you know, the idea of like putting out an image when I was, you know, like 12, and I was just like wanted to be 12 a little bit. And so that was kind of when it started. And then And, and it's been a few years now, and it's definitely, I'm in a much better place with social media. And I mean, because of the pandemic, I had to kind of adjust to it because,
Yeah.
when you weigh it out, it's like, okay, I have a complicated time with social media. I have a strange relationship with it, but I want people to hear my music, and I want to communicate with people, and I want to connect with people through this. And it is such an amazing platform when you think about it like that. And so I am, but I do still get very overwhelmed, like looking at, the past few years of my life in one place, and the fact that people can go there and look at it. I mean, it is so powerful, social media, and it's scary a little bit. but yeah, so now I'm kind of in a place where I've learned, and I've seen firsthand what it can do now because of like the past couple of years. And so I understand it, and I respect it. It's not my favorite thing in the world still, just because of how it makes me on like a big picture. I think I'm glad I use it. I really am. But like when you think like the day to day and the like planning, that's yeah, that's heavy. So and that's where like and even like, and I don't feel the like, and maybe it is because most of my audience has been built on social media. Like I don't feel like, like popular or anything yet. And so it's definitely, and it feels kind of like, sometimes I feel like it doesn't hold any weight, social media. But then occasionally I'll get, a super sweet message, or I'll get, some sort of, or fan pages and things like that. And it's like, oh wow, like this is real, and these are real people, and this is just how we're communicating right now. So for that purpose, I think it's the coolest. But for day to day, for a person who has been pretty sensitive to it since day one, like it's complicated for sure.
So are you sure you're only 15? Because my goodness, like just listening to you, it's just like the perspective that you have. I have to be honest, like I didn't have that kind of perspective when I was 15. I was sort of like, which way is up when I was 15. So it's like, kudos to you and your family for you just being such a deep thinker and so thoughtful. And like, it's not even, as I'm listening to you, what I'm hearing is that it really is layered, the relationship with social media. So there's the piece of it where it can be overwhelming because there's just so much of us that we put into it, right? And it's for public consumption.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't know, I feel like it's just layers of the onion. And then there's another layer where it's like, it's your job. Part of it is your job. That's how you connect with your audience for the work that you do. And then there's the layer of it where you were so young when you started, right? And it kind of quickly went from like the visual for me is really going from, I can say the name of my elementary school because it was 100 million years ago, but like for it to go from one day is Green Run Elementary, do you know what I mean? And then the next day it's like singer songwriter, do you know what I mean? Like with a blue check or something. And so just the head trip, right? The shift. And then the other thing that really, really resonates with me is this idea of you have to feed it. Do you know what I mean? Like you got to feed the beast, especially if it's a part of your work. So the upside of it for someone like me is before probably the last 18 months, people who do what I do, like I'm a psychologist by training, we weren't necessarily the people that folks were paying attention to. Do you know what I mean? Like it was just, I didn't feel like it. But then like racial injustice and social injustice and COVID, and there's so many things that hit all at once. And then everybody started like really talking about mental health. So we went like from 0 to 60 in like 2 seconds, it felt like. And so now everybody's searching for all the mental health professionals, and especially your generation, like the young people who are like, no, like we need these folks in our lives. We need these folks to show up. We need these folks to support us and help us. And so there's this piece of it where it's like, it's great that everybody is paying attention to it. At the same time, I think I sometimes I worry about all the things that you just shared as a teen. How do you and how do we, like what kind of advice and resources from your perspective as a teenager can you give to young people, other people your age and around your age, that you think would be really wise for them in how they manage social media themselves? Because it's a lot to carry when you're 13, 14, 15 years old. So what would you say? What are some tips or thoughts that you have?
That's a hard one for me to answer because I feel like I'm still learning so much about how I cope with social media. But I think just like actually learning what type of like social media user you are, and like we all have our social media breaking points, and like, and you know, they might all be different, or maybe we're all very similar with that. But I feel like I just had to like learn mine, you know. And so now I don't like even bend, like I don't get there. And so I think that just figuring that out is very important, because now I know that like I just know what I can do with social media right now without, you know, putting the weight on my shoulders, because that stays for a long time. And yeah, I think that also I've tried really hard to like make my social media like just like, you know, follow people I enjoy and surround myself with like just sweet people and sweet things, and like that's hard to do because it's social media and everybody's so different on social media. But I don't know, I just, you know, I just follow a bunch of musicians I like and artists I like and my friends and my family, and like I just try and make it as, you know, comfortable as a space as possible. And also I love talking to people on social media, and that makes me happy. And so I feel like there's certain parts of social media that like I feel like there could be something for everybody.
Mhm.
And you know, and I've worked with so many great, like, you know, like Teen Talk Hotline and so many great organizations around teen mental health that have a lot to do with social media. And so I think that, and this is definitely like not a new realm for me. And
Right.
so I think that you know, there are people to reach out to, and you can find them through social media, which is pretty cool. But I think that the main thing I'd say was just like knowing your limits and really paying
Yes.
attention to them, because there really is no use in like pushing yourself past it, because it's just social media, like, you know.
Right.
And it's supposed to be there we're supposed to have fun with it. It's just like how I think we as like people, it's
Mhm.
like it is so powerful, and we just have it on we just
Mhm.
have it on here. Like that's
Mhm.
so crazy that we just have
Mhm.
it. And I feel like that is such a double-edged sword. And so yeah, I think you just like need to know your limits, and you need to pay attention to them, because there is no point in pushing yourself past that, because it's just that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's not, and I feel like I've talked to this like about I've talked about this like with my mom before,
Mhm.
like
Mhm.
how it, you know, it used to be like you'd go to school and you'd see your friends,
Mhm.
and you'd come home and you wouldn't know what they were doing after school
Mhm.
unless
Mhm.
you like
Mhm.
called them, and
Mhm.
then you'd see them at school the next day, and that's it, and you
Mhm.
don't really see them. And I
Mhm.
think that we see people at school, we see people after
Mhm.
school, we see people whenever, we see people we see people all the time, we see people that we don't go to school with, we see people in different parts of the world, we see famous people, we see all these people. And
Mhm.
and you know, naturally we compare, because that's what we do.
Yeah.
And it's all laid out in front of us. And so I've just, you know, limited my scrolling time. I don't really do that anymore.
Mhm.
You know, and I just, you know, I just pay attention to the people that I want to pay attention to, and I just, you know, try and keep it at a minimum. But that's such a tall order too. So that's taken me time.
Yes.
And so I don't know if that's like the best advice I can give, but I feel like just starting on that.
Yes. I love everything about that. I love the honesty about how we have to engage with social media in a way that works for us. I want to
Mhm.
just flag something that you said that I say all the time. So now I feel like I'm sort of cool because a 15-year-old is saying it. So I'm like, okay, so it must be not a bad thing. I can say this again.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I say that really echoes what you said is I say curate. I talk about curating your news, right? But it's also curating your feed. So you follow the things, like you said, there are musicians that you follow, you know, there are certain topics there or topic areas that you follow. That's really important because, like you said, social media really should be there to support us and uplift us. And if we're consuming social media in a way that like gets heavy and makes us feel not so good,
Mhm.
then we want to reevaluate how we engage with social media. And I think another thing that you said maybe hinted at, and I'm wondering if this is something you feel comfortable talking about, is this idea of consuming it in a way that feels good for you, which also means having the freedom to not consume it. So you've taken breaks from social media. Can you talk a little bit about what led to that? How
Mhm.
long was your break? What was that like for you?
Yeah, I've taken some considerable breaks from social media, and I think that And I haven't had one in a while because of like the way I've been treating it, but it was sometime last year, I think. And I think the best way I could describe it was I was genuinely reaching like an emotional break. And I mean like it was getting to the point where like my mom was like, I can't let you use this right now. And so it's
Yeah.
just, I mean, and I think it was because I was, I was just looking at so much about myself. And it's not like, it does feel like not right sometimes to just be able to see everything that we've been doing just like laid
Mhm.
right in front of us. And
Mhm.
it looks, and we're not gonna, it's so hard to be your like purest authentic self on social media because it goes through such a process before you put it out there.
Yeah.
You're changing things and you're switching pictures and you're captioning it and you're like doing things that you don't even feel like really sound like you. And so I think that I was just starting to like really, and that was when I had, just really transitioned to virtual school, and it just all felt so like virtual and weird. And I was just getting
Yeah.
so over it. And so I think that I shouldn't have let myself like get there, but you also like, you don't realize it's a daily thing that we do.
That's
And so
right.
you don't really know
That's
until it
right.
happens. And so, yeah, I was kind of off of social media for like, I feel like a couple months. And I was like, and I wasn't like fully off, but it was
Yeah.
just one of those things. I wasn't back on my like scheduled posting. Like I wasn't really communicating with people. Um, and I'm glad I did that. And sometimes you need that. And when I came back, everybody was still there. And and that was like everybody was still there. Nothing really changed. And so and that was like comforting too. I was like, okay, I can do this.
That's the thing. Like,
Yeah,
they are still there, right? They're not,
totally.
there's millions and millions of people on social media. And so when you leave, some of them will miss you, but they'll be there when you get back. And I
Totally. And
just,
if they're
yeah,
like authentic followers and authentic fans, like then they don't care that like
right,
you're taking a little break, you know?
right,
And
right.
and like for me, like I didn't take like, I wasn't completely off the grid. Like I
Yeah,
maybe posted some stories sometimes, but I think yeah, I think we need that. I think we
yeah,
need that for sure. But yeah, so I just kind of had to like read myself, and I'm so lucky because my mom, and she can like so point that out in me. And I mean, she knows me better than anyone, and so I feel like when she says that, I'm
yeah,
like, oh, okay,
yeah,
something's wrong.
yeah,
And I'm just like, and I feel like we have a relationship where like I'm so open and honest with her about everything that I'm doing with my music and my social media. And she is so involved. I mean, she kind of has to be because of my age, but like she is so involved. And I feel like, and that's why I'm so grateful for that too, because, in a room full of, people that don't really know me like that and
yeah,
just know me like through business, having my mom there is so great. And so
yes,
I feel like I was in like a really good position, and I still am, because she can really see that in me, and just having like somebody to bounce that off of. But yeah, social media is such, I feel like I've said this so many times, but it's so powerful, and it's so like, and it's literally, it's the weight on our shoulders, and we don't even like feel it until we take it
yep,
off for a minute.
yep.
And I think that and I feel like that's what we need too. We kind of need to have the moments where we don't have it to recognize that we can not have it sometimes.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Everything you're saying puts me in the mindset of just thinking about, they're like, my mom's deceased, but when we were kids, she used to talk about wants and needs.
Hmm.
And I think sometimes we feel like we need social media, but your point is reminding me, sometimes mostly it's really just something that we want. We want to be
Yeah.
able to use it as a tool. We want to be able to engage with it. We want to be connected with people. And at the same time, there are multiple ways to do that. And so all of this really puts me in the mindset. I always like to think about, how do we bring people up as we leave them? So as we start thinking about winding down our conversation a little bit, I get in the mindset of resources. Like,
Hmm.
what are resources that you and I can come up with that we feel like can be useful? And I'll say two. One is obviously our friends at Project Healthy Minds, because there's so much that they have going on through their new big resource guide that they rolled out, that just has a lot of, I don't know, supports and places that people can get pointed to get connected to the many, many different kinds of help that might be available to them, especially teenagers and young people. And then you mentioned someone who's a friend to me, whom, you know, I really, really care about, Andy Reamer and all the folks at Teen Talk or Teen Line. I'm sorry, at Teen Line. And you mentioned, I think you said Teen Talk Line, and just like those kind of resources where you can call and get connected to somebody who really understands what you're going through, because they're also a teenager, right? They're trained and they understand how to have these conversations. Not like, you know, it's not bad to be able to talk to older people like me and your mom, but sometimes you don't want to talk to us. Like, it's stuff that we don't get. And then one other resource I just thought of is, you see is in this little sign behind me, where we've launched something at the Acoma Project called Team, T-E-A-M, Acoma, where we're looking for young people just like you, Chloe. Like, hopefully, I'm just going to put it in the universe. You can be like a little ambassador for us, because we need young people in your age group to do what you're doing, right? Which is talk about it and be an advocate, and like let other young people know it's okay to talk about your mental health. In fact, it's encouraged. So those are just some of the resources that I know of. You said a lot, but are there other ones that you think are really great that you'd want to share with people?
Yeah, and I mean, you said a couple of mine, like Project Healthy Minds, of course. This was so great, and I love being a part of things like this. And then, yeah, I've done some stuff with Teen Talk Hotline and No Stigmas, which is another great mental health organization that I've done like a few like calls like this with before, and those are great. And I would say Batir is like an Australian mental health platform that I did something with a couple months ago. And that's really cool too. And so you kind of think about it like in a global perspective, and that's super wild that we like get to have access to things like that too. And that is like a pure like, and I might be like butchering their definition, but I mean, from what I understand and from like the involvement I've had, like that's like a pure like they like really only discuss mental health on that platform. And so I think that that's really cool. But yeah, and there's probably some other ones that I'm forgetting to mention, but I've been involved with like so many. Oh, and what is it? Youth. There's one like Youth Move.
I've heard of Youth Move.
Yeah. And I've done I wrote a mental health piece for Youth Move a couple months ago too. And it was like the first time I'd like sat down and like wrote out my mental health journey, which was super nice for me. And so yeah, really I've done so much with so many mental health organizations since the very beginning. Like, and these are people that have been working with me since I was, 12. And at the time I was actually, really still struggling. And so I think that it's so nice to be able to talk to people like that. And I just, I'm just so grateful for anybody who's been involved with me in that way. That's been great. But yeah, really, really all those people. And there's probably more.
There's so many more, but I think we've given the people a really good list of places to start. One other one you made me think of with like some practical tips. This is more for parents and teenagers together, because a lot of times parents don't know how to talk to kids. They don't know what to say. They don't know how to open up the conversations. They're not as fortunate as you are with your mom and as I am with my two kids, just where at least that there are open lines of communication, and that communication piece is so key. And so I will shout out the Ad Council. They have something called sounditouttogether.org, which you probably will like. It's this really cool website where they have musicians, right? Lauren, no, I'm not gonna say it right, Haregi, who used to be in Fifth Harmony. She's a part of it. And there's a brother, Toby Nwigwe, a rapper, and a couple other folks, Kamau, and I think, I forget the other sister's name. I think it's Impress, but they're all musicians and artists, and they got together and help to put together this guide, like where literally you can print out the guide and parents can read it, and they can get some prompts and ideas for how to open up conversations with young people, literally your age, like middle school and early high school. And so that's really important, because people don't always know what to say. Do you know what I mean? They don't know how to approach. They don't know how to enter into the conversation. So ultimately, all these resources that you shared, right? The both of us being here in support of Project Healthy Minds and all the amazing work that they're doing, and the way that they put information out there and make it accessible. Just like we can never name too many resources. Like everything, you know what I mean? It's going to resonate with somebody differently. So I have to say, I'm just so pleased that you would take the time to use your platform in this way, because not everybody does this, right? Like a 15-year-old, you got 100 million things you could be doing in the, between your career, your friends, your social media, just your life, your family. And the fact that you take time to do this and support other young people, I don't know that we always know how much things like this can just blossom and help so many more people. So I really appreciate you. I really appreciate you giving me the opportunity to have this conversation with you. Like I said, you just have such a beautiful spirit inside and out. I know you're going to continue to just go just like this. And I'm so excited to watch you soar and watch you continue to share this message about positive mental health in your age group and in young people. And I only wish you success. So let me ask my
Thank you
final
so
ask.
much. That was so nice.
Oh, you're so welcome, sweetheart. And look, let me say this from mom to mom. Thank your mother for being an amazing mom and like building a relationship with an amazing teenager, because you are truly amazing. That's a reflection of you and her.
You're amazing.
And thank you. So I just wonder, I'm gonna give you the last word. Are there any things that you want to share with the audience, with the people out there around anything that we've talked about today, but definitely, in support of mental health?
We covered so many bases, but I think I mean, I guess that I would say I'm just so happy that we're in a place where we can be, open and honest about it. And I think that like starts within ourselves. And so for me, like I've, mentioned a bunch of times, it was writing, but, and I feel like there's, and there's so many great organizations like we just named, and there are people to talk to, and there are people who are experiencing the same similar things. And like, I feel like we're getting to a place where, I mean, for me personally, like the biggest change in myself has been that I've started validating my own feelings.
Yes.
And, for me, I've done that through art, but I feel like that's so important. And I think that, it's never too late to start getting there. And so I think that that's just what I would say. And what I was, what I mentioned before about like limits and breaking points. I seriously, I don't bend anymore. And I don't think anybody should bend because, and especially when it comes to things, that should really be taken so lightly, like social media, like just don't push yourself to that, because it's not worth it. And yeah, I think that it's just never too late to like start on the journey, because I'm still on mine.
Well, Cloe Wilder, thank you so much. Project Healthy Minds, we love y'all. I'm gonna shout out Team Macoma one more time, and just thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much. This was so great, and you're so amazing, and I love all of the work you do, and I loved this. This was great.